Ian Flo, how are you doing, sir?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. What's your religious background?
I'm a Muslim.
You're a Muslim. Okay. So what topic are you here to speak on?
Yeah, what you have up there, I mean, I'll answer any questions that you have for me. I believe that Jesus is the Messiah, just not God.
Okay. So you want to deal with the second topic? Well, when I say Jesus is God, I'm saying that historically Jesus has claimed to be God. So would you agree with that, or would you disagree with that?
And what's the source? What's the historical source that you're using to
The
come
go-
to that conclusion?
the Gospels and the historical sources where Jesus speaks, which would be the Gospels.
Okay, is it unanimous,
What's unanimous?
or do they go against each other? The historical accounts of Jesus, whether he claimed to be God or not, is it unanimous, or do they go against each other?
Yeah, unanimous. All four accounts of Jesus have chronicle him claiming to be God in some way or another.
Okay, are the four Gospels the only history accounts pertaining to Jesus, specifically within the first, second, and third century, or do we have more sources that talk about the life of Jesus?
They're the earliest accounts, and they're eyewitness accounts, so they are the most authoritative accounts. There are other accounts that mention Jesus, obviously, but they're the most authoritative because they're the earliest and they're eyewitness accounts. So the argument I'm bringing with that second topic is that Jesus claims to be God in the scriptures. So do you want to go into them? Do you agree with that at all, or do you disagree?
Yeah. So what you brought up a historic. You kind of came into this angle of the conversation through a historical perspective. So I just want to nitpick your brain a little bit.
Yeah. I mean,
We know
it's
that the
historical.
earliest complete manuscript. Yeah, we know that the earliest complete manuscript of the New Testament is dated to the 4th century. Right, it's obviously Mark. It was carbon dated to 60 to 70 A.D. or 60 to 70 years after the time of Jesus, and so on. And the other Gospels are dated later on.
There's
And we also
other
understand
there's
that
other there's other scholars that date Mark and the four Gospels earlier than that. So if you're gonna bring up
to my knowledge, it was
scholar,
like 65 to 70.
I understand what you're
What
saying.
would
Like,
you
what?
disagree?
Yeah, I do disagree with that. There are scholars that, if you read it, like when you say 65, 70, those are scholarly understandings of the when those are usually moderate or secular scholars dating them. But there are other scholars of the New Testament's corpus who date the Gospels to earlier. There are scholars that date the Gospels. They say the Gospel of Mark is usually the earliest, being 50 AD. I could read you some sources that date the Gospel of Mark to 50. But even if I were to grant that Mark was written in 60 AD, it still would be Mark, and the four Gospels would be the earliest accounts of Jesus and eyewitness accounts pertaining to Jesus.
Okay, so when we go and look closer to Jesus' time, specifically within the 1st and 2nd century, we have, fragments of, the Bible before it was canonized. We have early church father writings, and such things. So when you say that this narrative, or this, that this was a consensus that Jesus claimed to be God, according to the historical accounts closer to Jesus' times, is actually false. We even know your own church father, Justin Martyr, he attests to certain groups existing within the 1st, 2nd century. You have Ebionites, you have the Nazarenes, you have the Vicinians, you have the Arians, you have some Gnostic groups. It wasn't a consensus that they all believed Jesus was God. Some of them actually held to pro-Islam. Let me just finish that point real quick.
No, I'm gonna cut you off because
can I finish that
I'm
point
gonna
real
cut you
quick?
off because respectfully,
You're gonna cut me off?
yeah, respectfully, that doesn't have any engagement to the argument.
That's not respectful to cut someone off.
My original argument, Dean, is that Jesus in the scriptures claims to be God. I said he historically claims to be God. And you asked me what's my historical source. I said the scriptures. So right now, all you're arguing is you're trying to discredit the scriptures. You can't. Firstly, that's not possible.
Yeah, I don't.
Those are the earliest.
Yeah,
it's a fact of the matter. These are the earliest sources of Jesus' words. So if I asked you specifically earlier, if you disagree that in the scriptures he claims to be God, so I want to redirect the conversation back to that because that's my topic. So do you disagree, Dean, that in the scriptures themselves he claims to be God? Whether it's historical or not, we can argue that next day. But the argument today is if Jesus claims to be God in the Bible, in the historical corpus, the Gospels that we have. So do you agree that he claims to be God in the Gospels or not? That's the.
I disagree.
Okay. Now that's the point we're on. So why do you disagree?
Yeah. So we see a lot of people try to insinuate divinity on Jesus, but Jesus specifically within the red letters when he's talking, he actually does not affirm these insinuations. He goes on to negate it on multitudes of times. For example, you have John 17:3, where he says the Father is the only true God, where in other places he says of that day and hour no one knows, not even the Son. Right, so we know God to be all-knowing. So if he lacks knowledge, even in other places it says Jesus grew in wisdom and stature. Right, if Jesus lacks experiential knowledge, he cannot be God. When the young rich ruler comes up to him and he says, "Good teacher," and Jesus tells him, "Why are you calling me good? There's only one that's good, and that's God." He makes a distinction between him and God. The Pharisees literally stone him, try to accuse him of being God. What does he tell them? Right, that would have been the time and that would have been the time and the place to stand 10 toes and say, "Yeah, I'm your Lord. Worship, bow down before me." But he tells them, specific. I'm trying to recall the passage. If he called them gods to whom ye are called gods in your scripture, if he called them gods to whom the word of God came in the scripture cannot be broken, then why do you stone me for claiming what? To be the Son of God, not God himself, the Son of God. And he understands according to their scripture, the Son of God is not a person of a divine title. It's a person who is righteous, who follows the laws, commandments, and sentence of God.
Can you hear me? Am I coming
Yeah,
through clearly? All right. Let's deal with them one at a time. So your first point was that Jesus is not God because John 17:3, Jesus says, "This is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent." Correct? That was your first point?
Yeah.
All right, so let's go there. So in John 17:3, you're right that Jesus refers to the Father as the only true God. But let me ask you, and when he says only true God there, what is only referring to? Or modifying, if you want to use a proper term. When the word only is used, what is it referring to?
Only is exhaustive language that's addressed to the subject that's referred previously. There it uses the plural of you, which we understand you to be a secondary singular pronoun. So he's saying that the Father is the only true God.
No, so when I say what is only referring to, what I'm asking is like what's only modifying. For example, I'll give you an example. If I say I'm the only real black person, am I saying I'm the only black person or I'm the only real one?
I don't understand how that
Well, answer my question. Like,
statement is analogous to.
No, answer my question. If I say I am the only black person versus I am the only real black person, what is only modifying? Am I saying I'm the only black, that there's no other black people around me? Or am I saying out of all the black people in the world, I'm the only real one? Which one would I be saying?
Real in what sense? Like that everyone else is not black?
Maybe that's a weird word to use. Let me give you another one. Let's say I'm the only tall black person versus saying I'm the only tall black person. Am I saying there's no other black people? Am I saying out of all the black people there, I'm the only tall one?
You're saying out of all the black people there, you're the tall one.
Right.
The only tall one, yeah.
Right. So the word only...
It excludes everybody else from being tall.
Right,
yeah.
Beautiful. So the word only in this sentence in John 17:3 is important. So John 17:3, it says, "You, the only true God." So what the text is saying here is that out of all the false gods in the world, the Father is true in comparison to false gods. So Dean Flo, I'll ask you to be charitable. Do you believe that the Bible presents Jesus as a false god?
Yeah.
The Bible presents Jesus as a false god?
Yes, actually, yeah.
Really? So Jesus is not even a real messenger in the Bible.
No, that doesn't follow.
Well, if he's a false god, that means he's not a true. He's not a true messenger.
I'll elaborate a little more on why I say this because I've already said earlier. Remember how I said everyone else is trying to make Jesus God, but when Jesus is speaking, he denies this. So yeah, Jesus is a false god according to everybody that's trying to insinuate the divinity on him.
No, you have to.
I'm answering it from that perspective.
No, the question I'm asking is like from the scriptures themselves. You're asking about what you think people are saying. I'm saying, do the scriptures present Jesus as a false god? Because it says only true God. It's saying out of all the false gods in the world, the idols, the Greek gods that people worship, the pagan deities, out of all the false gods in the world, the Father is the true God. So I'm asking you, is the Bible lumping Jesus in with these pagan false gods? Or is the Bible saying that the Father is the true God?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I would say that this specific verse is excluding everything and everybody else except the Father from being the true God, including Jesus.
I disagree. I'll tell you why. If I say 2 plus 2 only equals 4, am I excluding other equations from equaling 4?
2 plus 2 only equals 4. 2 plus 2 only equals 4. Yeah, 2 plus 2 cannot equal other than 4.
Right, but
yeah, you're right in making that statement.
But
yeah.
am I excluding other equations that also equal 4?
That's not the way you formed your statement. You said
2 plus 2 only equal 4. Right. So am I saying that there are no other equations that can equal 4? Am I saying that?
There's no other No, you're not saying that.
Right. Beautiful.
You're saying there cannot be any other answers for what 2 plus 2 is other than 4.
So the whole point is that only is important here. So my answer to you on John 17:3 is that John 17:3 is just Jesus' way of emphasizing the Father as being true. It's not a negation of himself. You're trying to say that when Jesus says the Father, you are the only true God, that it negates the Holy Spirit or negates the Son. But you're forcing negation in the text. And I'll substantiate this because if you go down 2 verses, John 17:5, Jesus tells the Father to do something. I'll read it for you. John 17:5. Now, Father, glorify me in your presence with the glory I had with you before the world existed. Yeah. So let me ask you.
Yeah.
If you are with God before creation and you have glory with God before creation, what are you?
Yeah, you falsely presupposed that he was pre-existent with God already. That's not what the text is saying.
The text says, sir, Jeremiah, the text says that
Father, glorify me with the glory that I had with you
before the world exists. So you got a lot of noise in your background. There's a lot of noise in your background.
It's very quiet on this side.
I don't know. I was hearing a lot of noise. Okay, go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, so the verse says, now, Father, glorify me with the glory that I had with you before the world began, right? This doesn't actually talk about him being pre-existent. It talks about God's foreknowledge and plan for Jesus to be glorified. For example, similar to Jeremiah 1:5, where it says that Jeremiah was made a prophet to the nations before he was even born. How could it be? It must mean that Jeremiah was pre-existent? No, of course not. It just means that God had a plan for Jeremiah to be a prophet when he did come into existence, similar to Jesus, or God having a plan for Jesus to be glorified when he does come into existence.
All right.
Not that Jesus was pre-existent.
All right, let's read it slowly, because you get these false interpretations when we read it too fast. Let's read it slowly. Now, Father, glorify me in your presence with that glory I had with you before the world existed. Dean, did Jeremiah have glory with the Father before the world existed?
No, he was made a prophet.
Okay,
before the world existed.
So Jeremiah, hold up, let me continue. I'm building up. So Jeremiah did not have glory with the Father before the world existed. But Jesus says
he was a prophet.
Jesus says here that before the world existed, the world's existence is creation. So before the world existed, Jesus had glory that he shared in the presence of the Father. So if Jesus is sharing glory with the person of the Father before the world existed, then what does that make Jesus? Because this is not talking about foreknowledge at this point, because it's going further than that. It's not saying that the Father knew him. It says he has glory that he shares with the Father before existence. What does that make Jesus in verse 5?
Yeah, it makes him someone who was glorified before he even came into existence because God had that plan for him. I think that you have the wrong misinterpretation of this, because how can it be? Let me ask you, how can it be that Jeremiah was made a prophet before he was even born? Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, so
how can Jeremiah be
before I go down that rabbit trail, I can answer that, but before I go down that rabbit trail, you already agreed that Jeremiah does not have glory with the Father before the world was created, because Jeremiah was creation. So the world was created first and Jeremiah was created later. If Jesus is created, then he cannot have glory with the Father before the world was created, because then he is created. So he doesn't have the divine glory of God because he's creation. But Jesus says here,
Jesus is not created?
Jesus is not created, firstly. But secondly, Jesus says here,
doesn't say that he's the firstborn of all creation.
Y'all let me land my point. Jesus says here that he had glory in the presence with the Father before the world existed. So how can, if you believe he's a prophet, how can Jesus say in the Gospels that he has glory with Allah? Let's say Allah for your sake, because you believe Allah is God. So let's say, how can Jesus say, I have glory with the Most High God before the world existed? If he claims that, what is he claiming to be?
Okay, so not only did you deflect my question, but you reframed the question that I've already before. So is that how we're gonna continue this conversation? You're just gonna refuse to answer questions and reframe the same question that I've already answered?
I'm not refusing to answer questions. You're not answering them right. You're not giving me an actual answer. You keep deflecting to Jeremiah, but you're the one that you're the one dodging the question. Because you're bringing up Jeremiah to say, because this is what you said in Jeremiah. I'm hearing you. I'm listening to what you're saying.
What was my question? Do you even remember?
You said in Jeremiah, how is it that he can be called a prophet before he was born? That's what you're saying, quoting Jeremiah 1:5.
Nope.
You see how you guys always change it? You see how you guys always change it? So I'm gonna.
How is he made?
I'm gonna mute you now. Because you see how I even gave you, I still manage your position.
Can we not panic, brother?
No, brother, stay muted for a second. Stay muted for a second, Dean. See how I brought up what you said? That's what you said. How is he made a prophet? How is he a prophet before he's born? Because you quoted Jeremiah 1:5. I repeat it to you, and now you don't want to stand on it. So I'm going to respond to that because you want me to respond so much. Is that, as you said, it's referring to him, God having the plans in his mind. Like in the same Jeremiah 27:9-11, it says that I know the plans I have for you, talking about Jerusalem, that he wants to take them out of Babylon. That is different to John 17:5, where it says, now, Father, glorify me. Talking about the glory of God. Christ is saying, the glory you have, glorify me in your presence with, what type of glory is it, Jesus? With the glory that I had with you, that I shared with you. Jesus claims to share the same glory as the Most High God before the world existed. That is different to God foreknowing that Jeremiah would be appointed as a prophet. That is different even in what Jesus says. So I'm going to ask you again. I answered what you said about Jeremiah. So I'm going to ask you again. If Jesus claims to share glory with the Most High God before the world existed, what is Jesus claiming to be?
Okay, yeah, no problem. I'm going to answer it. But as soon as I say something you don't like, don't cut me off like you did last time. Just let me end my...
As long as you answer the question, brother. As long as you answer the question.
All right, no problem. So you said that he has the same glory as the Father before the beginning of time, before creation, before any of this. And you also claim that Jesus is not a creation. Now, I need to break this and deconstruct this entire misinterpretation that you have of John 17:5. First of all, Colossians actually puts Jesus in the category of creation, where it says that he is the firstborn of all creation. That's one. The second part is that same chapter, if you keep reading, Jesus literally says, now, Father, I give them the same glory that you gave me so that we all may be one. John 17:21. He's talking about the disciples, saying that they will receive the same glory that was given to Jesus by the Father. This is another issue because God is not given glory. He's independent. He does not need a source outside of himself, power, authority, glory, none of that to be given to him. He intrinsically has those things. So that actually negates him from being God. And also, I've already said, him having this glory does not for him in the future when Jesus comes into existence that he will be glorified. So go ahead.
Repeat the last point. I heard the first two. My alarm went off. So repeat the last point.
Yeah, the last point was just literally me repeating the same answer that I did before, that it's foreknowledge, not preexistence.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So hopefully all you guys on TikTok saw he didn't actually respond to what I said. But let's engage. So you went to Colossians chapter 1. You said Colossians chapter 1 shows that Jesus could not have pre-existed his quote-unquote creation or his birth or whatever, because Colossians 1 places Jesus in the category of creation because it says firstborn of all creation. So let's read it. Colossians chapter 1, and we're looking at verse 15 onward. It says here, He, talking about Jesus, is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. Now, I cannot go into what firstborn means because firstborn linguistically in the Bible is used to mean preeminent. But let me just read the context, Dean. All I'm going to do is read the context. I want you to tell me what is being said by Paul in the context, because that's how we understand the Bible. We use the context to understand what's being said. So I'm going to use verse 16. For everything was created by him in heaven and on earth, the visible and the invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and by him all things hold together. So Dean Flo, I read verse 15 to verse 17. So my question on the verse that you brought to say that Jesus is created, according to Colossians 1:16, who created everything in heaven and on earth? What does the text say?
You said you read verse 16. The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him, for him.
Okay, so my question, based on what you read, is if it says that everything was created by him in heaven and on earth, then according to the text, who is the creator of everything in the world? According to the text.
Verse 16, verse 16 doesn't say all things were created by him. It says, for in him all things were created. And then if you keep reading, it says all things have been created through him and for him.
The Greek word refers to the one. Like I'll pull it up because you're talking about.
I'm reading the NIV. I'm not sure what version you're reading.
So I'll read the Greek for you. This is Colossians 1. I'm going to read the Greek on the right side. The word is ein. This Greek word that's used, and it means like the agent of one, the one doing it, right? The agent. Like that's how it means. I'll read this word.
Sorry. So you're on Bible Hub for Colossians chapter 1 verse 16, right?
Blue letter Bible, but yeah, Bible Hub, same thing. So it's the word. Yeah. So the word you read, in, by, or the means. So what the text is saying here is that Jesus is the means by which all things were created. So my question to you, I'm going to repeat my question that I asked originally. According to the text you brought up verse 15 to say that just means that Jesus is created. So according to the context of what you brought, according to verse 16, by who were all things created?
The term that you said were by, is it en?
Yes.
The Greek en?
Yes, you can look at the definitions.
It says in, on, among, a primary proposition denoting a position and instrumentality.
Right.
A relation of rest in, at, on, by, etc.
Beautiful.
Okay,
so answer my question.
Yeah, I can respond to that. So because it says that Jesus is the firstborn of all creation, Jesus was created first, and then after God used him as an instrument of creation, because it then later on says all things were made through him. So the same way I can go and use a hammer to put a house together, right? I'm using this tool to build the house essentially. Did the hammer create the house, build the house, or did Dean do it? Dean essentially built the house, but he's just using this tool, the hammer, to do it. So yeah, it says that Jesus was created first, then he was used as an instrument of creation by God, so God can make all things through him. Not that Jesus himself is essentially the creator, because he himself is put in the category of creation in the same verse.
Firstly, a hammer is impersonal, so that's not analogous because Jesus is a person. Jesus has agency. So a hammer is impersonal. It's a tool. Jesus is a person. But secondly, you're saying that Jesus is created. But the text here says everything. It says for everything was created by him. Or even if you say through, everything was created through him. So according to you, you're saying Jesus was created. So did Jesus create himself, sir?
No.
So then how is everything in heaven and on earth? It qualifies. It says everything in heaven and on earth. Jesus was in heaven, Jesus was on earth. So if everything in heaven and on earth was created by Jesus, then how is it that Jesus is created according to the text?
Yeah, the context implies that the Father created Jesus, and then the Father used Jesus to create everything else.
It says, it doesn't say everything else. This is what the JWs do too. It says all other things they put on the Bible. No, it says everything. Panta, that's the Greek word. The Greek word used for everything is this Greek term. If you have the Greek open, you can look at it. It's this term. Let me get it for you.
So you are
all
you
things.
granting me that everything includes Jesus?
What? No. Jesus is not part of everything. That's my point.
Oh.
That's my point. Well, my point is to you is that if
okay,
everything
so I don't
is,
have to respond to that.
brother, you gotta listen to me.
I don't hold.
You have to listen. You have to listen to me.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
You said that that verse 15 says that he's the firstborn of all creation, which you said means that he's in the category of creation. And you said that Jesus was created and the Father created everything through Jesus. But what I'm saying is that if the text says everything was created in heaven and on earth by Jesus, and according to you, Jesus is created, then how did Jesus create himself? Since according to you, Jesus would be a part of the category of everything created.
Okay, yeah, no worries. So when I say that this is referring to God, right, or specifically the Father creating the Son and then using the Son to create everything else, the context that I'm using to come to this conclusion is in 15, where it says the Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. So the invisible God, who the Son is representing here, is specifically referring to the Father. For in him all things were created, things in the heavens and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers, rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him, right? Mm-hmm. So again, it literally says that he is the representative of the invisible God, that he himself is in the category of creation, the first created, and then this invisible God, i.e. the Father, uses the Son to create everything else, and to create everything else through the Son.
So you see how you keep adding to the text? You keep saying everything else. You keep adding else, or the JWs, they add other. None of that is in the text. The thing is, because of your misunderstanding of verse 15, now you are adding to verse 16. You cannot add to verse 16 to understand 15. You have to be consistent. So verse 16, I'm going to ask you one more time, Dean. Verse 16 says that everything in heaven and on earth was created by Jesus. That's the context of verse 16. That by him, everything was created.
I disagree with
For everything.
No, it doesn't say that.
Let me put on my screen. Let me put on my screen so you know I'm not lying to you.
Yeah, I can open
For
my
everything
screen too.
was created by him in heaven and on earth, the visible and the invisible. So I'm going to ask you, Dean, if Jesus is created, was he able to create himself? Did he answer that, please?
Yeah, so for in him all things were created.
Is he part of all things?
Doesn't say by him.
Is he part of all things?
For in him all things were created. So does it say
all
things?
All things refers to those that are created, right?
Yes.
So is Jesus created according to you?
Correct.
So would Jesus be a part of the all things that were created by him?
No, because the Father is the one creating, not him.
Thank you for coming, sir. So you guys see how the Unitarian position, he's a Muslim, but he's arguing a Unitarian position because they cannot believe that Jesus claimed to be God in the Bible. And you see how he argued the Unitarian position, and it brings him to have contradictions in the text. Because you see, if Jesus is created, but yet the text says that everything was created by Jesus, then according to what he's saying, Jesus created himself, which is logically impossible. That's a contradiction. You can't create yourself. So what the text is saying is Jesus is the image of the invisible God. No creature can represent God perfectly, but it says Jesus is the image of the invisible God, which would already mean he has to be divine with the Father. And it also says he's the firstborn of all creation, because firstborn is a Greek term which refers to either first in order or preeminence, that you have a superiority over something. So Jesus is preeminent over creation. That's why he's the firstborn. He's superior over creation. And then it says firstborn over creation, for everything was created by him. If everything is created by Jesus, then Jesus cannot be created. It's a simple fact of the matter. But because he was reading his understanding into the text, he couldn't let it say what it said. And he kept adding to it. Let's get the next guest up here. Let's see who's here. Hey, Dean, man, you can come back anytime, but hey, man, this is going on the channel, so hold that L, okay?
Celebrating Jesus tonight. We sing praises.
We sing praises to our King, for he is the King of Kings. We sing praises to our King, for he is the King of Kings.
Everybody sing Jesus tonight. We sing praises.
We sing praises to our King, for he is the King of Kings. We sing praises to our King, for he is the King of Kings.
Everybody sing.